Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming out today. I'm Tom Laney. I'm the director of the McFarland Center for Religion, Ethics, and Culture here at Holy Cross, and welcome to the people who are watching us online. I should say that. They'll have a big audience doing that. The McFarland Center sponsors and supports programs that foster dialogue on questions of meaning, morality, and mutual obligation, together with Kraft-Hiatt Professor of Judaic Studies, Professor Alan Avery Peck, and a committee of faculty colleagues dedicated to this work. Mari Leonard Fleckman is another of those colleagues. I coordinate programming under the aegis of the Kraft-Hiatt Program for Jewish-Christian Understanding. With support from the Kraft-Hiatt Fund, we're able to host lectures and discussions like today's on Judaism, Jewish-Christian understanding, Jewish history, and the Holocaust. In addition, the Kraft-Hiatt Fund enables us to sponsor scholars in residence, to underwrite faculty research and course development, and to offer study abroad scholarships to students in Jerusalem and on a Maymester in Eastern Europe. This year, we're proud to be offering a scholarship to one student for the Maymester program in Jerusalem that we helped launch a decade ago. She'll be studying Jewish spirituality and mysticism in the 21st century. I encourage you to learn more about our programs at holycross.edu/McFarland Center. And I know that the late Jacob Hyatt of Worcester, who took the lead to inaugurate his family's work at Holy Cross, I think would be very pleased if he were alive to witness the event that we're going to sponsor today. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome Rabbi Abraham Skorka, known sometimes as the Pope's Rabbi, to Holy Cross for 2 days. In addition to this talk, he's generously giving his time to visit classes. He visited Professor Matt Schmaltz's comparative politics religion class today, and spent time with students in will spend time with students in 4 Montserrat seminars tomorrow. He's engaging in conversations with our Jesuit community and with local Catholic priests and Jewish clergy who came to lunch today. So we're keeping him busy over the course of 2 days. Rabbi Skorka was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina. He has a PhD in chemistry from the University of Buenos Aires. And interestingly, as we were doing a little walk on campus, I happened to take him through the soon-to-be-named Fauci labs, and we walked through the chemistry area, and he was quite intrigued by what he saw and interested in the papers that students had written, and on Andre Isaac's glass wall were all sorts of equations, and I thought I'd pass them by because I didn't know what they meant, but he was very good at pointing out exactly what those equations meant for chemistry, so that wasn't something I was expecting we'd engage in. He graduated from Midrasha Havarit in the Latin American Rabbinical Seminary. He was the rabbi of Benei Tikva synagogue for 42 years and rector of the Rabbinical Seminary of Latin America for 20 years. Rabbi Skorka first met Jorge Mario Bergoglio, who is now Pope Francis, decades ago when Bergoglio was an auxiliary bishop in Buenos Aires. In 2010, when Francis was Cardinal Bergoglio, Archbishop of Buenos Aires, they co-authored On Heaven and Earth, a book about interreligious exchanges on faith in the modern world. As Bergoglio became Pope, the two remained friends, and that friendship continues to shape both men's commitment to interfaith dialogue and addressing the urgent demands of the world. They got together last time was in January. For his work, Rabbi Skorka has received an honorary doctorate from the Pontifical Catholic University of Argentina, the first time in Latin America that a Catholic university gave that title to a rabbi. And from the Jewish Theological Seminary and from Sacred Heart University, he's received degrees as well. He was named Distinguished Personality in the Field of Culture by the Legislature of Buenos Aires and a Figure of Reconciliation from the Polish Council of Christians and Jews, among other awards. His new book, Returning to Life After the Storm, Hope and Wisdom from Jewish Sources, which has a preface by Pope Francis, those are hard to get Francis to write your preface, right? Offers a selection of Jewish resources to help us understand what the pandemic has meant to us as human beings. We're going to welcome Rabbi Skorka in a moment, but first he asked if we could start with a video. Oh, there we go.
Fue nuestra vocación religiosa la que propició el que nos encontremos en la vida. Y fue nuestra religiosidad la que nos permitió desarrollar un diálogo muy profundo que llegó al corazón de ambos. Un diálogo sincero, directo, que seguramente fue forjado por las normas que nuestras tradiciones religiosas nos dieron, especialmente las palabras de los profetas, aquellas palabras que yo percibía en las homilías del Santo Padre cuando, siendo arzobispo de Buenos Aires, lo escuchaba personalmente en la Catedral de Buenos Aires, y como en muchas oportunidades yo le dije: pero usted habla léxico de los profetas, usted critica a las autoridades nacionales en los días patrios, los que se hace el balance de cómo está el país, en el mismo tono en que lo hacían los profetas de Israel. Y así nos fuimos acercando. Y hoy en día, cuando intercambiamos emails, porque seguimos en proyectos, el uno le escribe al otro: querido hermano. Y no es meramente una manera de hablar, tenemos un diálogo tan abierto, tan profundo, un cariño tan profundo, el uno entiende al otro y ambos entendemos la vida, y yo creo, usted me dirá ahora, que ambos aprendimos a ser más observantes, más religiosos, más creyentes, esa es la palabra que siento, a través de nuestro encuentro, usando una palabra que le hubiese gustado a Buber, a Levinas y a los grandes del diálogo.
Y así fue, ¿no? Fue una confianza mutua que fue creciendo, hasta el punto que él me entregó 2 veces su comunidad en 2 festividades para que les predicara. O sea, un obispo católico predicando en una sinagoga. Y eso porque había una base de confianza total y porque sabíamos que en nuestro diálogo, y esto lo quiero subrayar, ninguno de los dos negoció la propia identidad. Si no, no se hubiera podido dialogar. Hubiera sido una farsa, ¿no? Y claro, un diálogo hoy empezó así, mañana ya, y cómo está de salud, y que esto, y que rece por mí, yo rezo por usted, y su señora cómo está, y sus hijos. Y la amistad fue creciendo siempre con esa identidad de cada uno. Y después siguió el programa televisivo, donde junto a un hermano nuestro evangélico amigo que está presente aquí hoy, teníamos esas horas de reflexiones teológicas y de la vida o de problemas de la vida, y después el libro que hicimos juntos sobre puntos de vista distintos, pero eso fue posible porque había detrás un espíritu religioso, un profundo espíritu religioso. Así que yo agradezco a Dios que haya permitido esto, que Él haya estado con nosotros en ese camino. Y hoy corregí el texto, ¿no? Porque era muy formal lo que estaba preparado. Y dije, no, hermano y amigo, eso es lo que siento por Él, gracias a nuestra participación de nuestros sentimientos religiosos. Que es muy importante porque mi vida religiosa se enriqueció con las explicaciones de él. Se enriqueció muchísimo, ¿no? Y supongo que también algunas mías, ¿no? Cuando,
sin dudas.
O sea, esto es así, así. Y yo fui entendiendo más la revelación y él fue entendiendo más la postura cristiana, pero o sea, se desarrolló desde la propia identidad, y eso es muy lindo.
Y para enfatizar un poco la cuestión de las preguntas que nos han formulado, nosotros, con mucha modestia, lo digo, con mucha modestia, pero en los ojos de muchos somos un paradigma de a dónde puede llegar un diálogo y un encuentro profundo. Y eso lo sé, que muchos nos ven como un paradigma. Y tal vez, seguramente, digo con humildad esto, porque nadie puede arrogarse el saber lo que está haciendo Dios, pero yo creo que nos puso en este lugar, en este momento, para que sirvamos. Usted muchas veces, incluso cuando filmamos un mensaje para Israel, nunca me voy a olvidar que usted, un pequeño mensaje fue: usted y yo somos un signo de que se puede. Así, eso fue lo que se dijo, es lo que usted dijo.
Y ninguno tuvo la pretensión de convertir al otro. Gracias.
Gracias.
Good evening for everybody. And okay, this is the summary, the resume of what dialogue is and where dialogue has to go to transform to two persons with different points of view, with different beliefs, but with the conviction that human being, in each human being there is a spark of God, that each human being deserves respect, deserves being heard, with a common of values in common. You have the possibility to discover who the other is and who you are. But there is a great condition in order to start to develop a dialogue. The condition is first to put yourself, as the Pope used to say, to put yourself in the shoes of the other. And the second condition is to open your heart to the other, to let the other enter in your heart, and the other has, of course, to open his heart in order to get a real dialogue, an important dialogue, an authentic dialogue, because it's very simple to sit and to talk about the climate, about some sport, yeah, why not? And with a good cup of tea in the middle, this really is not dialogue. Dialogue is to produce things, to construct a message for it, and if you are a leader, a message for you, and especially for your congregation. We try all the time to transmit a living, an authentic message to the Argentinian population of Buenos Aires, to our congregations, to our communities, and everything we did had this aim as a purpose. Afterwards, of course, after you are so close to the other person, you begin loving the other person. Many very private things in my life I revealed to him, and he revealed different things to me. The base elements of our dialogue are, first and foremost, loyalty. Last time I was together with the Pope, with my good friend at the Vatican, was on last January 13th, a couple months ago. And on a certain moment, talking about our relationship, because we spent an hour together, but you can talk and you can do a lot of things during an hour. And I remember that I told him, I don't remember why, but in our conversation, it came out that I told him, you know, maybe that I committed different errors with you because, you know, there are many universities and other places in the United States that are inviting me to talk about us, about our companionship, about our friendship, and about our way of thinking. And maybe that I commit errors on that, and I am not so accurate. But one thing you have to know, my loyalty towards you is absolute. And I know that, so he laughed and he moved his head, saying, yeah, my loyalty towards you is also absolute. There are things between he and me about his life, about my life. This is the real dialogue. And we tried, beside our personal dialogue, to transmit through it a message to the world. One of the iconic images of his papacy is and will continue being our embracement with our very good friend, the Muslim leader Omar Abud from Buenos Aires, in front of the Western Wall. You know, it's a very special place for Jews, Muslims, and Christians. This is the wall that surrounded the Temple of Jerusalem, where occurred a great part of the Passion of Jesus. It's the holiest place in Judaism. The Sancto Sanctorum was that. The temple, as you remember, was destroyed by the Romans, led by Titus Vespasianus on 70 this coming era, and also for the Muslims it's a holy place, because according to Muslim tradition, Muhammad went to the heaven from this place with his horse Burak, al-Burak. So the idea is to give a message of peace, because peace is not the equivalent of non-war. Peace is much more than a situation of truce, of non-war, of non-aggression. You know, peace in Hebrew is shalom, and in Arabic the same word, salam, and the root of the word shalom in Hebrew is the same root of the word shalem. Shalem means something which is complete. Complete. For instance, what you can say in Hebrew, hu shalem im libo, that when a person is in peace with oneself, he is complete with his heart. The heart, according the Bible, is the place where you have your sentiments, the heart and the kidneys. So now we know that really our computer is here in the brain, but what suffers are the kidneys and the heart when the brain is in the middle of a storm. So to make peace, because peace you have to build up, we have a very good key to make peace, to build up peace, which is the dialogue. the word. You know, from the first chapter in Genesis, we can learn many things. I knew in my life a physics that someone, an American Jew that he lives now in Israel, who published a lot in subparticles, atomic subparticles, someone who knows a lot about quantum mechanics, and he wrote books about that, showing that the description on the first chapter of Genesis goes well with the quantum theory. There is no clash between both theories. But I suppose that the most important lesson of the first chapter in the book of Genesis is not to explain us quantum physics. The most important lesson is to see which is the human image according the biblical conception. All the other creatures God created, okay, he said, let it be the light, and the light appeared, and afterward let it be, let the animals be created, and the animals appeared on the face first in the seas and the waters, and afterwards also in concordance, I don't know if this is an English expression, according to the theory of evolution, that life comes from water. But when it comes to the creation of human being, appears the word, and God said, Naaseh Adam. Let us make. Why the plural? Okay, there is a lot of explanations. Let us make a human being. Let us make a human being. He did that. It was not only an order, and God said, no. And he took afar min adama, dust from the earth, and he created a human being. And which is more important, with the only one creature that God talked is with human being. This is the most important thing that we have as a tool to relate each to the other through words, our vocabulary. It's undoubtedly, there is no comparison between the, on quotation signs, the vocabulary of the animals, of the other animals, and our vocabulary. Our vocabulary, you know that the animals, they interact between them, and they have their words, and the words are some kind of sounds. There are all kind of, there is a Nobel Prize about that, whose name is Lorenz. So, but the sophisticated concepts that we can express with words. So this is unique in our human condition. And the problem begins when the power of the word is devaluated. When the words are not reflecting the true sentiments, when you are using the words in order to catch the tyrants, the demagogues are doing that, to catch the heart and the brain of people. For instance, Hitler had a huge oratory power. He caught the hearts and the volunteer of the people, and but he was not the first one. You know, this demagogical power to confuse the mind of the people, to catch them and to move them according their crazy ideas. This stereotype also already appears in the Bible in a very dramatic way, but we have to know how to read the whole story. There is a character in the Bible named Nimrod. Appears that he was the founder of the city of Babel. Babel, you know, Babel, Babylonia, Babel. Babel really, this is a footnote. I like always to put footnotes. Babel is the biblical explanation after the story of the Tower of Babel is because God Balal confused the languages of the people. But so the name of the city had to be Balal and not Babel. Babel really, okay, the Bible tries to make some kind of compose between Babel, Balal. The real explanation of Babel is Bab-bel, the place where the god, the pagan god of Bel, which appears in Isaiah, was stood there, and there was the worship to this pagan goddess. So, what happened? What is the story of the Tower of Babel? Who was this Nimrod? Appears a strange verse before the story of the Tower of Babel. Appears a verse in which it says that he was a great hunter. A great hunter before God. And there are all kinds of explanations. But there is an explanation that he hunted. When I introduce a word which is not so clear for me, please let me know. Now we are going well, right? Because I do the same that my friend in Italy. He invents from the Spanish words in Italian, and I invent from the Spanish words in English. Why not? Okay, but please interrupt me and tell me, what is this word? Okay, that he caught is one of the explanations that he caught, this Nimrod caught the willing. When I said volunty, I meant the willing, voluntad. There is no in English volunty. I use the word voluntad, the willing of the people. And if there is not, okay, they can it's permissible to include it. The willing of the people, he caught them. And because how can we understand all the story of the Tower of Babel? It begins very well and very idealistic situation. And all the earth, all this part of the earth, had only one language, Wonderful. I have not to study more languages. The English is my fourth one. Okay, I have not to study more languages. The dream of those who created Esperanto, Zamenhof, is this. Oh, a language, Esperanto, from hope, esperanza, hope. Only one language. This is going to give us the possibility to understand the other. And what happened? And they had also only one idea. What is the idea? The idea is to build up a tower, which has the property to reach heaven, to reach God. Okay, why God really didn't accept that? What? He feared from them. He was afraid from the people. Why did God not accept the building of this tower? And in the middle, he punished, at the end, he punished the builders of the tower. The point is that if we learn about the punishment, we can understand what is not so good, what was not so good in God's eyes. How he punished them? He confused their languages. What means that? That means that it's impossible for all of us to have the same language. What means that? That means that even talking in English or talking in another language, your language, all of you are talking English, but exactly you are not understanding all the words in the similar way. There are all kinds of nuances related to the understanding, for instance, of what really peace means, or other concepts. So, and this must be respected. This must be because the right to understand, the possibilities to understand, and to be one with his own ideas, to be really a free person and with own and personal ways how to see and how to understand what is life, this must be respected. This is the message from the tower, the story of the Tower of Babel. There are all kinds of interpretations, but there is an exegesis in Jewish classical exegetical literature, which is very, 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 very important. That really I paid a lot of attention to it. And in the 16th century, lived in Italy a rabbi named Ovadia Seforno, and he wrote an explanation, an exegesis to the Bible. And what he wrote is my words, what I quoted him. It's impossible, only a tyrant or under a dictatorship regime, you have to say the same words, and you have to have the same ideas, and you have to walk on the way that the tyrant are telling you. This is the power of the real world. This is the meaning of dialogue, to respect the other and the conception that the other has about the meaning of the words and about the meaning of the conceptions at all. You know, there is a verse in the book of Ecclesiastes, Kohelet in Hebrew. in which appears a verse saying in Hebrew, "Umotar adam mina beima ayin, ki hakol havel." And the thing that makes a difference between an animal and human being is nothing. Nothing, because everything is like havel means when you speak the air that goes out from your mouth. This is a havel. Nothing. But was a sage, a Jewish sage, who said, it's impossible to say that there is no difference, as the book of Ecclesiastes says. There is a difference. Let us read the word ayin, aleph, yud, nun, like an acrostic. We cannot accept the simple explanation. There is a difference. So, what is ayin? The aleph is amirah, our power to talk, our power to speak, our speech. This makes a difference. The yud is aleph, yud, nun. The yud is yediyah, our knowledge, our capability to think, to analyze things. And the third one is sul, neshama. The nun is from neshama, the soul that we have, the spark of God that we have. We are living in a world in which there are a lot of tyrants. We are living in a world in which the power of the word is devaluated, is very devaluated. And the idea is to change this reality. This is very briefly the definition, my understanding of the importance of dialogue. Where there is no dialogue, you have a reality of a tyranny. When there is no dialogue, you have what is going on nowadays in Ukraine. When there are no words, what you have is bullets, death, destruction. The way to talk with God is also through words. Our prayers are words. And a very interesting detail, in one of the most important prayers in Judaism, maybe the most important, we begin saying, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov. Eloheinu, our God, God of our fathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, Yitzchak, and God of Jacob. So the point is that a rabbi asked, why in this prayer, we have to say God of our fathers, patriarchs is the proper word, God of Abraham, God of Yitzchak, God of Yaakov. In one shot, we can say God of our patriarchs, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Why to repeat the word God, God, God? And this rabbi gave a very interesting explanation related to what I said to you a couple minutes ago. the relationship between God and Abraham was not the same relationship as the relationship that was with Yitzchak, with Isaac, and another quite different relationship that those that he had with Jacob. The words cannot be the same words, and the message could be, when you pray, you have to use your words. Okay, we have a standard standard prayers, but the intention, the interpretation of the prayers must be your interpretation, your own, your personal interpretation. There are not identical human beings. Even if you are going to make the clonation of a human being, the two people with the same DNA are going to be different, because the neshamot, because the souls are going to be different. You can make a copy of the DNA, but the circumstances of life will develop another kind of soul. So those are the reflections. If you would like to make questions, to ask questions, please do that.
Maybe I'll pull the microphone up a little bit, but because we're online and recording things and doing things hybrid, we're asked people to use the microphone for questions so that our virtual audience can hear us also. Anything you want to?
Warm up act. Thank you very much for your words, which are just so evocative of what has to happen more and more in our world in the absence of dialogue, which has been so harmful and continues to be. I wonder if you can offer a specific example of an aspect of dialogue that you had with Pope Francis, or in any other interfaith setting in which your comprehension of an idea in Judaism or in your own faith was enhanced, or even alternatively, if there was an argument that you've had in the case of a dialogue that, at the end you just have to say, we agree to disagree.
And how to maintain a dialogue with a person that I disagree. I have really many examples to give about things that I did with Pope Francis. For instance, when I invited him to my synagogue in Buenos Aires, it was for a very special occasion. On our New Year, the Jewish New Year, the celebration of the coming of a new year is a day of in which God judges humanity. So it's a day of joy, the beginning of a new year. It's a day of we go and we pray to God, please judge us with mercy, please. And afterwards, the 10th day in the new year is the Atonement Day, Yom Kippurim. So before the Shabbat, before Rosh Hashanah, before the beginning of the new year, at the end of the Shabbat, what we do is we organize some special prayer named Slichot. Slichot, lisloach in Hebrew is to forgive. Slichot, forgivenesses, something like that. When Bergoglio told that I gave him my congregation to talk was at that opportunity. The Archbishop of Buenos Aires has the possibility, I invited him, to give a message his Jewish brothers in order to referring to Rosh Hashanah and to Yom Kippur, the beginning of the Jewish year and Atonement Day. For instance, he began saying, I quote something that he wrote and he transmitted to my congregation, and from my congregation, of course, to all the Jews of Buenos Aires. Today we come to present ourselves before the Lord. We can imagine the similar scene at the beginning of the book of Job. There the Lord interrogates us, and his questions move the heart, uncovering its intentions. We stand before him, we stand before him and want to listen. We pray, let your questions move our inmost beings, make us transparent. Let us not be afraid of the truth if we recognize or proclaim it before him, for God. Because the Lord is, in quotation signs, kind and compassionate, slow to anger and full of steadfast love. He does not accuse relentlessly or hold grudge forever. Psalms, this last is a quotation from Psalms 103, 8, 9. A rabbi could say exactly the same. And at the end, he handed in a huge way. I am not going to read everything, but he quoted the book of Nehemiah. At the end, he said as follows. I'm reading. We remember feeling remembered. We want to love first, feeling loved. He is teaching from the Jewish sources. Absolutely all his quotations were from what the Christians called the Old Testament. This is to make an empathic way with the other. I am telling you, I am sharing my feelings with you. We remember feeling remembered. We want to love first, feeling loved. He waits for us, God, no? He first us. This is a Spanish expression that he invented, that Bergoglio invented. To first means to do the first step, like the flower of the almond tree. Becoming like this, contemplating so much love, it becomes a celebration. What is the meaning of the Jewish celebration? So to stand before God. So amidst repentance and the desire of personal reform, let us repeat to ourselves as brothers and sisters. This is the quotation signs. This is the day consecrated to the Lord. Do not be sad or weep. Do not be sad, because your rejoicing in the Lord is the source of your strength. From Nehemiah, or Nehemiah in Hebrew. So he spoke from his like a Catholic brother, like a really Christian brother. He did it on a second time in another opportunity that invited him also, and the same way. But another anecdote about This is a story that I'm going to share with you. When Cardinal Bergoglio was elected Pope in 2013, because you asked me, okay, tell us something relevant, something salted and peppered. When Cardinal Bergoglio was elected Pope in 2013, one of the first leaders he received was Shimon Peres, the President of the State of Israel. An affectionate relationship immediately arose between them. Peres, one of the father of Israel, David Ben-Gurion's beloved disciples, had elaborated hard to achieve a peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinian people. He realized that the new Pope could be a key contributor to this process. Upon learning of his friendship with me, President Peres asked me to convey to the Holy Father his eagerness to welcome him to Israel before the expiration of his presidency in July 2014. He wrote to me on May 19, 2013, saying, I quote his letter, "The book which you co-authored with Pope Francis has served as a source of inspiration for the wonderful accomplishments which our relation with the Catholic Church can achieve. I particularly appreciated your remarks about the Tower of Babel," what I spoke here. "Perhaps our attempts to reach tolerance and understanding between all peoples and nations will provide atonement for this tragic episode. I look for," at the end he wrote, "I look forward to His Holiness' visit to the Holy Land and to hosting him as an honored guest of the State of Israel and as a dear friend." And I was in the middle of this, as a bridge between Peres and the Pope. And this is good because through friendship you can get much more than through the professional workers in the ministries of foreign affairs. This happened on May 26, 2014. Francis was so moved by the greeting of parents at the presidential residence in Jerusalem that, alluding to the Beatitudes of Jesus in Gospel of Matthew, he exclaimed, quotation signs, I am quoting, "With a touch of imagination, I would like to invent a new beatitude." After his being hosted by Peres in Peres' house, presidential house, "I would like to invent a new beatitude, one I can apply to myself today. Blessed is he who enters the house of a wise and good man. I feel blessed." This is said from Peres. Let us continue. On that same day, I was deeply moved to be with the Pope and our mutual friend from Argentina, the Muslim leader Omar Abud, at the Western Wall, as I told you, where we embrace as Christian, Muslim, and Jews. I knew that Francis was profoundly resonating with the emotions of Psalm 122, what happiness I felt when I was told we are going to the house of the Lord. Our feet are touching your soul, O Jerusalem. Shimon Peres had another great dream as his presidency drew to a close. This was to hold an event in the service of peace with Pope Francis, with the Ecumenical Patriarch Bartolomeu, the primary spiritual leader of the Orthodox Christian world, and with Mahmoud Abbas, the president of Palestine. After some discussion about the most suitable venue, the gathering occurred in the Vatican Gardens on June 8, 2014. The olive tree that was planted there by the Pope, the Ecumenical Patriarch, and the two presidents, renew hopes for peace between Palestinians and Israelis, which, while still eluding us, must be our constant goal and hope for the future. I have spoken about these diplomatic initiatives because of something about Francis that Shimon Peres wrote to me in a book he gave me as a gift when I met him for the last time. This was in his Tel Aviv apartment on December the 3rd, 2015, after his retirement as president. At 92 years of age, his mind was clear and his commitment to peace undiminished as he shared with me his global political vision. In the book he gave me, he wrote this inscription in Hebrew: "For your unique contribution to the rapprochement of hearts between the Jewish people and the Christian world. Never before has there been such warm relations as with Pope Francis, who has breathed a new spirit into the heart of his religion and that of many members of other religions, who has given our world hope, humility, and humanism. And you have revealed yourself to be a profound dialoguist. With love, Shimon Peres." This is a very interesting story. Now, there are many stories like this. You asked about what can we do with a person with whom you have not coincidences, right? This is the last part of the question. What you can do is, first, you need one point in which there must be a coincidence. Without this point, it's impossible to enter into a dialogue. That the other person also do believe in the power of dialogue. Now, about no coincidences, okay, you begin to talk knowing that the other one is also a human being like you, and must be respected, must be heard. You try to understand his way of thinking and what to do, and the other has to know has to try to understand your point of view. A dialogue is first and foremost to listen to the other, and to ponder each word that you are expressing to the other. The book that we wrote together, On Heaven and Earth, this is not a book full with coincidences. We didn't agree in all the points that we analyze, but we listen one to the other. We stressed the points where we agreed, and it's the beginning of a way. It's the beginning of a new way. The point is, when you have not the possibilities of dialogue, and the only possibility that you have is the possibility of hate. When there is a dialogue, cannot be hate. When there is no dialogue, there is hate. Okay, so we have time for a couple questions more.
Other questions? Please. Come on up.
Thanks for talking and everything. I was curious about how is approaching the story, like in the Hebrew Bible, the Christian Bible, in the Quran from a historical point of view, help find commonalities between the religions with you and your colleagues.
Again.
Oh, so sorry. I was curious how is approaching biblical history from a historical point of view help find the commonalities?
Biblical history. This is very important. Your question is a very, very important question because you are the sons of, all of us are the sons of traditions, of things and people that happened many, many, many years ago, centuries ago. So, for instance, in the New Testament are certain, you see the figure of Jesus, and Jesus criticized the Pharisees. The Pharisees, on many occasions, don't appear as really positive people. Let us see this in a polite way. So, with the centuries, appeared some explanation in the church that the rabbis are the Pharisees. The rabbis and the Pharisees, they are the same. They are the same, the rabbi. So imagine a simple person who doesn't or who didn't know Bible, and he hears the rabbis. Oh, here I see a rabbi, and he is the heir, he is the continuator of the Pharisees. Oh, Jesus was against the Pharisees. I must be against this person. He knew nothing really, but he hated. He hated the rabbis. The real story is that the word Pharisees is not a clear concept in the Talmud. The word Pharisees sometimes appears in the Talmud, in the Jewish holy writings, appears like a negative, person. They use the word Pharisee as a person who tries to show himself a very saint and a very religious person and a very perfect person, and in an exaggerated way. And really, he was not so saint and not so perfect and not so nothing. So they are using in the same way the word Pharisee as they are using in a negative way, and you have to understand that on certain moments the rabbis are speaking about the Pharisees as they would say, he makes himself like a Pharisee, but he is not a real Pharisee. Something is to be a real Pharisee and something is to be a false Pharisee, a fake Pharisee. He makes himself like a Pharisee, but he is nothing. He is an empty person. So, but they use the same word, and you can find in the Talmud this explanation. So you must make a very good research about the Pharisees. Appeared a couple months ago, a book, in the last December, I suppose, a book named The Pharisees, in which you have a lot of, I contributed also to this book, a lot of research about who were really the Pharisees. Stop. The Pharisees, you cannot make a direct link between Pharisees and rabbis. It's not evident. That the rabbis took explanations and traditions from the pure and positive Pharisees, yes. But for sure that Jesus was against not the pure Pharisees, but against the false Pharisees. There are many teachings of Jesus that you can find a coincidence with the Pharisees of his time. So I know that it was or were people in the past saying that, okay, there is some connection between Jesus and the Pharisees. The first connection between Jesus and the Pharisees is that both of them, the real Pharisees, both of them believed that the Torah, that the Pentateuch must undergo a constant reinterpretation. You cannot read literally and do everything according to a literal reading of the Torah. No, you must make a reinterpretation. And this reinterpretation, the people who fought 2,000 years ago in this way were the Pharisees. This is the common base between Jesus and the Pharisees. So it's very, very important to make a whole research about many things that we receive from, about many lessons, quotation signs, that we receive from the past. It's very, and this is the contribution, the academic contribution to the Christian-Jewish dialogue.
One more question, anybody? Well, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure, and thank you all for being here.
Thanks you for giving me this opportunity to maintain a dialogue with you. Hopefully this is the beginning. And you can continue this dialogue with the memories of this moment, some ideas. You don't need necessarily the presence. When you have the presence of the other, okay, it's wonderful. But if you have not the presence of the other, you continue in dialogue with the other. Those who have not more a father or a mother because they went to another reality, they continue in dialogue with Papa and Mama. And so with friends and with others, dialogue is not only, this is the most, when the dialogue is a dialogue, each part of the dialogue leave fingerprints, spiritual fingerprints in the heart of the other. So hopefully this time was a real dialogue for both of us.